Hey everybody! We've got Lynda Bouchard and Cody Kratzer here. They are the authors of The Witches 3 Count on Me. We're so excited to have them here, and we're excited that you all were able to join us today. So if you haven't already got your copy of the book, there is a button that says Buy Lynda's Book where you can go ahead and buy the book through bookshop.org. If you have any questions, there is a Ask Question button, or you can also put it in the chat. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce Lynda and Cody, and then we will get started. So Lynda Bouchard is a former flight attendant who believes that books are the greatest time machines in the world. Following a globe-trotting aviation career, she founded Booking Authors, Inc., a boutique marketing firm dedicated to Southern authors. She holds multiple degrees, and she's also a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And this is Lynda's first book, so that's super exciting. Cody Kratzer is a graphic designer by day and an illustrator of all things spooky by night. She always wanted to become an artist and still can't believe that she gets to do what she loves every day. She is a member of SCBWI and the American Institute of Graphic Arts, South Carolina. She lives on the coast of South Carolina as a dog mom to her corgi Flapjack. So Lynda, Cody, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, Kyla, thank you for hosting us. And it is so great to be with Mary Beth, who is my cousin, and Jack and Deb Fitzgerald, who are just dear friends. So thank you for being here today, guys.
So Lynda, I'm interested. How did you kind of get started working on this project? It's your first book. Did you always want to write a children's book, or?
Oh my gosh. Well, no. I have been, as you mentioned, a literary publicist for many, many years, and I was quite happy on that side of the literary fence. But the unfinished manuscript that my husband Yates left behind changed all of that. And to honor him, I finished the manuscript to honor the legacy he wanted to leave behind. And so it was a very, very special parting gift because it made me an author.
Wow. Was this a manuscript that he worked on for a while before? Had he communicated with you those ideas?
Yes, in fact, he began the manuscript for what at the time it was just called The Halloween Story many years before we met, and tucked it away into a drawer because life got busy. But he brought it out on occasion and tinkered with it. However, he worked on it quite intensely during his final year. In fact, much of it was written then, but it was still unfinished. And so, I had a full stable of clients, and I finally had to push pause on my business to get it across the finish line. And he had handwritten notes in the margin, which served as a guidepost for me. Yes, it was special and wonderful and very helpful. And they served as a guidepost for me as I finished it and edited it, because the editing process was quite intense. And then I brought my wonderful illustrator, Cody, on board. And there was another layer to it because there has to be a happy marriage between the words and the pictures.
Absolutely. And when you met Cody, was she someone that did you guys already know each other, or did you seek her out?
Well, I did seek her out. I was working with another author at the time whose cover I just loved. And I asked her, I said, "Oh my gosh, that's such a beautiful cover." And as we know, a cover is very important when publishing a book. So I asked her who that was, and she put me in touch with Cody, and we spoke. And we just had the same creative sensibilities and work ethic. And knowing that I would be working very closely with Cody over a long period of time, that was very important. And so that's the way I found Cody. And we were both members of the SCBWI, Society of children's book writers and illustrators, and that helped as well because we had another resource available to us. Yeah, if you want to add anything to that, Cody.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was just getting started with freelancing in addition to other design work that I was doing, and really enjoyed working on our mutual friend's book cover. So when I worked with Lynda, I mean, it's so great getting to meet someone who has the same kind of creative mind, same kind of sensibilities, and so much passion for what they do. And I think that we got to learn a lot from each other, and it was just an awesome experience getting to create this together.
Yes, it was. It was very collaborative. Yes, indeed.
So what was that process like? So I'm assuming the manuscript was already done. Did you guys just kind of sit through and go line by line, or kind of chunk by chunk and decide what images you guys kind of wanted to incorporate there?
Well, you want to take this one, Cody, and then I'll add to it?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned assuming the manuscript was done. That was in flux. Lynda kept getting better and better and getting feedback and saying, like, let's change this. Like, this doesn't work quite well. This needs to look a little different. And when we started, this took place over several years. So we actually had original thumbnails and sketches that I worked from and ended up changing or tweaking over time. So while I looked at each page by page, I was thinking about the overall aesthetic of the book and how all the visual elements would tie in together, what kind of themes we wanted to show, even, consistency between the forest and the characters. So there were the broad strokes of it, and then the iterative piece by piece, page by page, and even looking at word by word, how can we convey this, especially when it came to the riddle later on in the book.
Right. And yes, and as Cody alluded to, the editing process, I'm a big believer in editing. There's no such thing as great writing, only great rewriting. And I edited right up until the last possible moment, because when you write short, every single word has to have weight and count. And because it was a rhyming riddle, we wanted to get that lyricism just right. And Yates had a lot of that already in place, which was helpful, but it was still a little clunky. And so I perfected that, and I hired a wonderful developmental editor as well as a copy editor who wrote specifically with children's books. And she also helped hone that and craft the final draft with me.
Awesome. Were there any parts from Yates' original manuscript that you absolutely knew you wanted to keep in the final product?
Oh, wow. Yeah, all of it, which was a challenge because it had to be a short book. And so it was quite lengthy, but it was all vibrant and very illustrative, strong, because Yates was a very prolific and wonderful writer on his job as a broadcaster and creative director, and that carried over into his fictional writing as well. So there was so much there that I had to put on my editing cap and make that hard decision to weed it out. But the germ and the centerpiece of the story was the train and the riddle. And so that, of course, stayed, although I tweaked the language a little bit to make it more lyrical. Yeah. But mostly everything from the original draft that you see in the final book was Yates.
And did he set out to write a Halloween story, or did he just kind of want to write something creepy? Like, how did the come to be?
He did indeed. That was the objective, to write the Halloween story. And in fact, as he shared with me, it was a challenge from his nephew to write something creepy about poisonous stuff and witches. And he happily obliged. But as I said, life got busy and it got tucked away. But yes, his objective was to write this specific Halloween story.
I remember actually you telling me he wanted to scare kids.
Yeah,
We have to push it.
he
Even though we
did.
have a young audience, we still want them to get a little scared.
Yeah, he would always say, I want to scare the crap out of these kids. He did not want to soft pedal it. And also, as you'll see, for those of you who have read it, Jack, Deb, and Mary Beth, the language is very robust because he did not want to pander to children, and neither do I. We were both linguists, and he had a tremendous vocabulary and challenged me every single day. So he wanted to keep those hefty words in there and send kids running to their dictionaries.
Oh, I love that. Cody, were there any images or any illustrations that you had difficulty kind of concepting, or anything that was different from any of the other work you've done? Like, was this a different style, or did you incorporate any different techniques?
Yeah, so it's funny because most of the other illustrative work I do is not geared towards children's books, children's illustrations, more as fun things inspired by comics, animation, manga even. So this was different from that, but really fun to explore and try new techniques, being a little more focused on the texture, the layering, using these colors that a child could focus on and really have fun looking at again and again. And there were challenges too to make sure that the illustrations were unique and each page was something instead of a lot of the same stuff. I know you and I were talking like, okay, we can't just have people in this room full of witchy cauldron smoke. We need to add more. And it was good, So I think I pushed myself to try something new. You pushed me creatively. And even working digitally, moving from Photoshop to a tablet was all new, but I think it was really fun to explore and discover.
Right, Kyla. And I learned so much from Cody. It was a great learning curve for me because although I have worked with authors for these many years, it was always on the other side of the fence. And being on the author side was a great learning curve for me. And especially a children's book where illustrations are so important. And sometimes the pictures fill in where the words can't or don't need to. And sometimes the words are there. You don't have to illustrate every single thing that is written. So those are some of the considerations that we had to make together.
Yeah.
And there were so many, oh gosh, I have stacks of revisions. And if you could see the side by side development of the story and the illustrations, it's just incredible, the improvements. And things look different digitally than they do in a handheld book. So, getting drafts and then tweaking in the colors for the hard copy. We went through several revisions there. So it is a long process. People think it's easy to write a children's book, but there are a great deal. If it's great, you make it look easy, but there are so many considerations between the illustrator and the writer.
Right.
And it's a weighty thing stepping into someone else's story, even, especially an unfinished one like this manuscript was. So I wanted to get it right. And working with Cody just achieved that. And I couldn't be happier with it. I really couldn't. So it is, just a brilliant product as far as I'm concerned.
It is. It's gorgeous. And I was telling you guys earlier, we had it sitting on the table in our office, and I walked by and I was like, I literally had to stop and pause. I was like, well, where did this come from? This is gorgeous. So it's a beautiful, eye-catching book. So I'm super excited that you were able to put it out into the world.
Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. Thank you for sharing that.
And I bet that had to be such a good feeling to, after all of the, several years of working on this book and working on the manuscript and then finally having illustrations with it to finally put it out. What has it been like to have your first book out?
Oh, wow. Well, this book is so special to me on so many levels. And it is just, I'm very proud of it. And I know that Yates would be also. It is amazing because now we are in actually Beaufort, South Carolina on tour. And we just finished up a book signing event, which was amazing. And meeting the public is so gratifying because as an author, it's a very insular, can be very insular and excuse me, I've been talking a lot these days, so pardon me. But it's a very isolating, rather, experience. Even though you're working with an illustrator, you don't get that external feedback and that objective feedback. I'm way too close to it. So hearing other people's reactions to it and how they embrace it is very, very gratifying.
Right, especially for me, because I was looking at these illustrations and this cover for hours upon hours and days and months. So hearing that people love it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I want to tear up at this. Especially coming back to it too after, finishing the book and then seeing it in person as we're in stores, giving it to kids. I'm like, oh my gosh, we made this.
Yes, absolutely. It is. And because people just like have that reaction like you had to the cover and her great illustrations, the kids just love it. And that is so, so sweet to see. And they're sharing their stories with us too, which is another layer to it. So this has been great fun, Kyla.
That's fantastic. Do you see yourself working on another children's book, Lynda?
Probably, I tell you, as wonderful as this experience has been, probably not. I simply say that, and I might, but I do have a nonfiction book in mind that I would love to write about my lessons learned from the road, traveling with authors on the road, and those life lessons and literary lessons and so forth about the craft of writing and the business and just hilarious stories that have happened. And but I'm not ruling out another children's book. Maybe after I get some sleep, those look different.
I hope so. Audience, just remember, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, or you can use the ask a question button.
Okay, we're going to read it then.
Oh, sorry, Lynda. I do see a question about if you want to purchase the book. So there is a link on this Crowdcast where you can buy Lynda's book. I will also put it in the chat so that you can get it.
Okay, wonderful. So yes, let's go ahead and read it. All right. My favorite eve is here at last. It's Halloween tonight, full of candy, tricks, and costumes, and lots of spooky fright. But first I need to eat the peas, awaiting on my plate. Instead, I tell my sister she is ghastly, but her pumpkin sure looks great. My mother says I told a fib that made my sister cry. She sends me to my room to think till I can tell her why. I'll play a trick on her, I think, and run off behind her back. I take a path through forest trees, twisted, burned, and black. And there I come upon a sight, 3 witches dancing round. I hide my frightened self behind a tree trunk near the ground. They dance a dance, a wild-eyed jig, indeed a fearsome scene. It's their night, it's scare night, it's their Halloween. Around their green and skinny necks hang chains of dried out bones, and on each head so hideous, black hats and pointy cones. Creepy curly toes peek out from tiny tattered shoes. Twirling, shouting, shrieking, they holler high halloos. To my surprise, I see 6 eyes in search through evening gloom. 6 eyes spin round and look for me beneath a rising moon. 6 eyes light up and full of glee, they see their boyish gain. 6 eyes find me, I gasp and groan and feel my spirit wane. Fast as flames, I spring right up. Watch me, I will flee. But before my daring dash begins, 3 witches circle me. A bitter wind rolls through the wood as one hisses to her coven. Looky, look, our guest is here. Perfect for our oven. She pulls me on her narrow broom, her voice a cackle loud. Rise up, forsake the earth for sky and thundercloud. My fingers squeeze with all their might. We soar above the trees, swooping, sweeping across the sky like bats upon a breeze. The wind and mist caress my face. We hurtle through the night. I cannot see how high we fly. My eyes are squeezing tight. With a whooshy bump, we land at last onto the rocky ground. Where are we, I ask, and slowly look around. The witch's hut stares back at me, adorned with webs and vine. If my mother searched for all her days, this place she'd never find. They toss me high and through the door, a squirming and a twitching. Across a grimy floor I slide into the witch's kitchen. It's hot and smoky. It's hot and steamy, full of smoke and things I shouldn't eat, like jars of bulging lizard eyes and cans of buzzard meat. In the middle, tall and scalding, a giant stove is burning with a portly pot just my size, boiling, belching, churning. This is when the witches 3 begin to use their power. It's clear that they loathe children on any day or hour. They chase me round the bubbling pot. Round and round go we. I duck and weave and zig and zag, but they finally corner me. I'm outnumbered 3 to 1, their figures looming tall. Just wait, I say, let's play a game. It's trick or treat time for us all. The witches 3 don't make a peep. They do not dance or sing. Have they heard the rumor? Quick trickery is my thing. We'll play my favorite counting game. A riddle it will be. No one yet has guessed it right. Can you, oh witches 3? Witches are not good at riddles. It's true. They just are not. This one is sure to save me from the boiling pot.
An empty train pulls in the station, the county fair's destination. At this stop, the trip begins for riders with delighted grins. 3 lads get on with toothless smiles and ride along for several miles. The next stop for this happy crew adds 2 more girls and 1 mom too. The train will stop at 3 more towns where 8 jump on with joyful sounds. A stop and a stop at 2 more stations. 4 get off at these locations. 1 final stop before the fair, 2 lads hop on, and we are there.
The witches 3 are counting hard on naughty fingers fast. We know the answer, one declares, your fate is here at last. I have to think, and right away, my brain is just a buzzing. I know they'll put me in the pot if they say 1 dozen. Before they speak, I raise my hand, trying not to giggle. Wait, I say, there's 1 more twist to my counting riddle. When the train pulls in the station at the county fair, how many times did it stop before arriving there? The stunning shift of focus is far too deep to delve. What? No fair, they cry. We counted all the riders, and so the answer's 12. Ha ha, you have been bamboozled, I say with giddy glee. My trick, my way to save a boiling me. If the witches counted stops, I dare not guess my fate. And just in case you guessed wrong too, The tricky answer's 8. Standing tall with triumph bold, my chest can barely breathe. I've taken back the power on this All Hallows Eve. Up, up, away the witches fly in mournful bombazine. They disappear into the night and never more are seen. I race home across October leaves, adventure in my head. I can't wait to tell my mother where my thinking led. The end.
That was fantastic. All right, we've got a question from Deb and Jack. They want to know, Lynda, what is your favorite part of the story? And you, Cody, as well. What's your favorite part of the story?
You go ahead, start.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my first favorite part of the story is the end, right as the witches leave, just because that was a fun part to illustrate. And scary movies aren't my thing. I like when we know everything's going to be okay. My second favorite part is actually the riddle, because there's a twist. But I think back to when we were checking the writing, we're like, okay, is this right? Does this actually add up?
Yeah,
so it has memories for me.
We did. I can't tell you how many times we counted that to make sure it was correct and everything. It's your brain is twisted up in a pretzel. But yes, I agree. The favorite part for me is also the train, because it's the train riddle, because it kind of takes you out of that Halloween spookiness. It kind of transports you into a nicer little time with a train ride at the fair. But I love the riddle. It is just so clever. Something only Yates could think up and do. And also I love the part where they're chasing him around the bubbling pot. And he thinks of that clever riddle that way. It teaches you to think differently and on your feet.
Yeah. So, Cody, which illustration challenged you the most, and which one did you enjoy crafting the most?
Yeah. I would say the illustration that challenged me the most was the very center of the book. I'm trying to pull it up here just so I can have it. It's the center spread. Do you want to hold the?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just because there's so much going on in the witch's hut. You know, we wanted to make it scary, add these creepy little anecdotes, like I think buzzard eyes and snake skeleton, and this, for some reason, there's a tree in there. There's someone sitting under it. So I think challenging in terms of creating interesting but creepy things to draw and draw the eye in. I think my favorite one to craft was the cover illustration, just because it really sets the tone for the whole book. And it was just fun, you know, like the idea of this guy spying on the witches and inviting you, the viewer, to spy on them as well before you're caught.
Right. And a lot of people, where am I? A lot of people miss the little boy. It's like, you know, where's Waldo? But it's so nicely done and blends in with the colors that they sometimes miss the little boy peeking out. I love the cover just blows me away every time I look at it. It's great.
One of my favorite illustrations was when the wind is going through them and you actually have the words within the wind. There are a lot of opportunities for you to kind of play with where the text was while you were writing this or working on the illustrations for this.
Right. I love that too. I'm trying to find it. I don't know if you can bring it up there on your screen, Kyla, but yes, this is very, I love that also. In fact, Cody and I talked about this, and I thought, why don't we have the words move like the wind? And so, yes, we discussed this together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think while we could have found other opportunities to include that kind of moving and rolling text incorporated in the illustration, with how much there was happening in most of these drawings, we decided to keep it pretty balanced otherwise, just so there wasn't too much going on or too much confusion either.
Right. But yeah, this is very, very well done. I agree with you, Kyla.
To set off the tension.
I love that.
Mary Beth says that she loves how you set up the little boy running away. The interaction with the sister and mom's reaction is so relatable to all kids with brothers or sisters and parents.
Right. I don't know if you can bring these people in, Kyla, but I would love to see my cousin Mary Beth and Jack and Deb. I would love to see their faces, but if you can't, fine. But in any event, Mary Beth, thank you for that comment. Yes, it is so relatable. And Yates too, he grew up actually with a single mom, so that is reflected in this story. And he had a great deal of freedom growing up, so that, the little boy running away would be absolutely something Yates would do. But it is so relatable, Mary Beth. Thank you for that.
We're sure you don't look like one of the witches, though.
What's that now?
Mary Beth said, I asked if anybody wanted to come on camera, and she said, please no, I'm homesick and look like one of the witches in the stories.
Oh, she is always beautiful. She's being modest, but it's so great to have you here, Mary Beth, and it just warms my heart to no end. And if Jack and Deb are still there, if you can, maybe, I don't know, bring them in, that'd be great. But it's great to have you guys here today. It's wonderful.
So, Lynda, so I know that with children's book, you're stuck to a very limited amount of words. There's only so much you can say. Were there any parts that you really wish you could have included, but just with word count constrictions, you just couldn't include them? Any aspects or any actions that you wanted to include?
Yes, that was one of the challenges of writing. As you know, writing shorter is more difficult. And because this was a short book, every word had to absolutely count. And I agonized over every word. There was a dog originally in the first draft. His name, Yates is a golfer, and the dog's name was Mulligan. And I had to make the difficult creative decision to take the dog out because it didn't advance the story. It didn't advance the storyline, and it just kind of slowed it down a little bit. So I had to take that out. And that's one of those hard decisions that I had to make. But, there were other things along the way, some of the draft, the word. We worked so hard. I worked so hard in tightening it up, and with Cody, the revising right up until the last possible moment. So there was much that was left out, but it just made the editing made for a brilliant story, because Yates's writing initially was so creative and just lent to the visuals.
I'm so sorry I didn't have time to check, but did Yates have any other books that were already published?
No. He was to have been the sole author. He was to have been that sole author. This would have been it is his first book as well. But he wrote all the time. In fact, he's got another children's book, kind of rough form, about a baseball team. So he's got writing out the wazoo. I mean, I have boxes of his writing. And in his radio days, he was a movie critic. And I have all those from WLEE Jack, all those movie reviews, and they're hysterical, and they are brilliantly written too. I mean, he was just an amazing writer.
Are there any more of his works that you would like to continue writing for him?
Well, the baseball story is very rough form. It's not even complete. I had more to work with here in The Witches 3. So I would really have to do most of that myself. It's not out of the question, however, but we shall see. We shall see, because this has been a great creative adventure.
Yeah, definitely.
And Cody, what were some of the works that you've worked on in the past? I know you mentioned doing comics and stuff like that. Was your previous work different from writing or for illustrating for a children's book?
Yeah. So I haven't done comics before. I'm definitely inspired by them and love, Matteo Scalera, Greg Ticini. But the work I've done before has mostly been single, kind of standalone illustrations, like book covers, posters, um, you know, character studies for writers so they could use that as a muse when writing a book. And oh man, this was different. So I was saying it's almost like an endurance kind of project, because you think you can get one thing done and then you're like, oh, well, we want to do more, we want to do better, we want to revise. And it really brings out the best in it. I would say it's different in that way, the length and amount of work that you do, the volume, and just the style. I wanted it to be more friendly for kids and instead of being more stark like ink and color, which I tend to stick to, bringing in a lot more texture. And I think doing that has influenced other work that I do, in the sense that, nothing's too complex anymore. I know I can do more. So that was a really nice takeaway from this project with Lynda.
And I know you said it was a project of endurance. Did you think it was easier or more difficult to kind of keep building from the same kind of illustration page after page?
I think it was both, because we get back to the fact that we don't want everything to look the same, but there needs to be consistency in the setting, the characters. So there was that challenge. And I think also just timing, making sure we could get everything done in the time we wanted to. Because I know we had planned you wanted to publish it and launch it before COVID really messed things up.
Right. We were ready to actually go last year, but then COVID hit and we thought, okay, no, we can't do that, because it's a learning curve. Everybody, all the publishing companies, everybody, like venues, were scrambling. I know you experienced that at the bookstore, scrambling to figure it all out. And I'm like, I don't want to be the guinea pig. So we waited, but COVID kind of followed us in. But it is a little bit more honed as far as the virtual events. And even now, like today here in Beaufort, South Carolina, there's a live, event with kiddos around. So it's a little bit more relaxed and open, but pushing pause on the publication actually gave me more time to edit it and make it better. So it was good in that respect.
So as I'm sure you know, kids are tough critics. So as you've been able to do these in-person tours and in-person readings with kids, what has their reaction been to the story and to the illustrations?
Well, Cody and I have been at all the events together, which is so fun. And they love it. They love it. They love all the illustrations. They say the witches are scary. So it accomplished that. Yates wanted to scare the crap out of kids. So some of those are scary. It has been positive, just amazingly positive reactions to the book. And people are wowed by the cover, first of all, and then they want to dive deeper into it and just love what's inside.
Mary Beth wants to know if you're going to go into any elementary schools in the area to do readings of your book and talk about writing and illustration. The little ones would love both of you.
Oh, Mary Beth, thank you for saying that. I'm always up for a road trip, MB. I can come to Prairie du Chien and read to your kiddos. But yes, it is on the list because there's a math problem in here, which is super fun for kids to learn, and the language as well. So maybe the cool thing about this book is it's evergreen and it will come around next year. So I haven't been able to hit a lot of the schools, Mary Beth, this year, but next year it's on my radar because I want to bring this out every single Halloween and do something like that and go into the schools. So we can talk later, Mary Beth, because I'm always up for, me, geography is not a problem. Great question.
Fantastic. One other question I have is, so going from a literary publicist to an author, what was that transition like from representing authors to becoming one yourself?
Yes, it has been a little bit of a learning curve for me because on a couple of levels, I wanted to get this story right. I felt a great responsibility to get it right for Yates. And also, you become very vulnerable when you are putting your soul out there and to be judged. And that you become very vulnerable. I did not expect the level of vulnerability. And even though I have worked with authors and I've worked with CEOs who wrote books and would weep after a book signing because his book was, these high-powered CEOs, and I never understood that. So it's rather gone from theory to reality, what I do. And that has been extremely helpful. But as you say, the kids are tough critics. And we've been pleasantly surprised about the reaction to the book. It's been positive. But some of the reviews, the early reviews, helped me improve it. So I had that advantage of improving it along the way. And that's an advantage of self-publishing. If I had not self-published, I wouldn't have been able to collaborate so closely with Cody, which was, just an important part of it all. I would have lost creative control. And it was extremely important to retain that and take ownership of my craft.
And you're such a good creative thinker and visualist as well.
Well, thank you.
Well, no, I mean, I think it was really valuable to our collaboration.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it has been like a love fest. I love working with and spending time with Cody. So it could not have been a more beautiful process.
Awesome. If there are any more questions, Phil, we've got just get the end of our time together. So make sure you drop them in the chat or hit the ask a question button so that we can get to them. Lynda Kody, is there anything else that you want to talk about the book, the process of writing the book, anything that comes to mind when you think about this project and the future of this project? Seeing that it is a Halloween book, so it could come around every year since it's out now.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah,
you go ahead. I was just crafting a note there, but go ahead.
No worries. I would say, last words, it's an adventure, and let it take you where it does, because things like we experienced, it didn't take the time we thought it would. The manuscript changed, the illustrations changed. So enjoy the adventure in the process.
Right. And just enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey, because this has been a great one. And it could not have been more rewarding, really. It's just been wonderful. And to see the way and thank you so much for embracing it there at Hub City. You have always been so supportive. So thank you. And thank you guys. I mean, Mary Beth, thank you. I wish I could see you, but thank you for coming today. We're going to talk soon, Mary Beth and Jack and Deb, if you're still there. Love you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right, if there are no more questions, thank you all for joining us this afternoon with Lynda and Cody. We are so excited, and congratulations on finally having this out and continuing Yates' wonderful writing legacy. We are super excited to see where your work takes you next.
Thank you so much for that, Kyla. Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, have a good rest of your Saturday.